Yeah, Pete, we talked a lot about Kadarius Toney on this show this offseason because he's so tantalizing from a fantasy standpoint. He's so productive on a per snap and per route basis, and I'm sure you know this. If he is fully healthy to start the season, can we bank on him having a full complement of snaps in this offense? I know in the Super Bowl, I think he got nine snaps, and
Yeah.
he did well in those 9 snaps. But are we still talking about a part-time player, or is he a full-time player?
Well, this is the typical strategy that you'll see from Andy Reid with returning players is when they're first coming back into the lineup, they don't bank necessarily on the player getting through a full game. If you go back and look to the snap counts of Juju Smith-Schuster when he was coming back from that concussion last year, he eased him in, and he tends to do that with all injuries. So let's try to use a hypothetical and say Toney misses a couple weeks, 3-4 weeks, and is ready just in time for week 1. I don't know if he's going to get that full 100% amount of snaps that he would have gotten had he had, let's say, a healthy training camp. Now you get to 2 or 3 weeks and he's healthy and the Chiefs feel like they can rely on him even more, then he starts becoming a much bigger part of the game plan. The Chiefs in a sneaky way use snap counts more so than they like to let on, especially dealing with players coming off of injury. And I think you see that in this case.
We need to stop talking about Kadarius Toney. That's all we ever want to talk about. I mean, is there a sense that the Chiefs will just never trust this guy as like a full-time player and are going to view him more as like a packages type player and almost like contributions are a bonus type player?
Yeah, I think they want to. I think they want him to be the number 1 receiver. This is something that they've leaned into all offseason. You've seen reports floated out that this is going to be Kadarius Toney's year to go from that role play gadget type, 1 play a game type guy to someone you can rely on. And it's always with if he's healthy. And you try to be careful with that. I try to be careful with that as a Chiefs writer, as a writer in the NFL, about labeling a player as injury prone, especially young, because when they're young, sometimes unluckiness happens and they've only had 2 opportunities, maybe 2 seasons, and they got injured both seasons and suddenly they're injury prone. But players can get into their 3rd season and then not be injured for several years, and then suddenly that stigma goes away. But with Toney, it's just hard to avoid because now you're here in the 3rd season. He had injury problems his 1st year, injury problems his 2nd year, and it's crazy. Not even 10 minutes into the workout, he's injured again. So I think if he can be healthy, which he unfortunately, again, he has not proven to this point, I think the Chiefs want him to be that. But until he shows that he can, last a month or 2 durable in the NFL, and you get 8 games started or appearances in his stat column, it's just hard for that. I think anyone to feel like they can lean into him as this reliable guy that they can count on.
Pete, you already mentioned some of these other names, but beyond Toney, the Chiefs receivers fantasy managers want to know about are 2nd-year pro Sky Moore, 2nd-round rookie Rashee Rice. We know all about Moore's shaky rookie year and then kind of a little bit of Super Bowl redemption, really strong offseason reviews from the coaching staff, from the Chiefs media too. How has Sky Moore looked? What do you believe his upside is? Would you call him like the number 2 receiver in this offense, knowing that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is like a starting receiver, but kind of like a role player, even though he's out there so much? Like, just give us the lowdown on Sky Moore heading into 2023.
Yeah, I'll start quickly with that Marquez Valdes-Scantling point. I think when Marquez first arrived in Kansas City, the storyline surrounding him was like, well, Green Bay used him more to stretch the field. He's going to be this all-around receiver here in KC. And it never really came to fruition. He was more of that guy who stretches the field in Kansas City. And we ran this on arrowheadpride.com. We've been offering questions out to the fan base, and we'll answer them and then let people answer in the comments. Who leads the wide receiver room? So take Travis Kelce out of it. Who leads the wide receiver room in yardage this year? My answer was Sky Moore, and this was before Toney got hurt. I didn't trust Toney to play more than 13 and a half games if you're trying to play the over-under game, and so that's 4 less opportunities for Toney to beat Moore in yardage. And I tend to like MVS is more of that guy who stretches the field. What does that lead you to? It leads you to Sky Moore, who I think can maybe counteract Travis Kelce as that other option on the other side of these formations where he is showing off that elite release off the line of scrimmage on these quick routes and really live as like this slot guy for Patrick Mahomes when maybe Travis Kelce is getting doubled or bracketed and has too much attention. Sky Moore, I think, is going to be that guy, that chain mover. And I wouldn't be surprised if Sky Moore, under the radar, leads the Chiefs receivers in yardage this year because of the Toney injury question, not being able to play a full bevy of games. Because I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling kind of will live always in that 600 to 800 range, where the most impressive part about his game is the yards per reception, because usually it's like 17 or 18, where Sky Moore, to me, I think, especially in the second year, is going to get that volume.
Do you think Moore profiles as the full-time slot receiver? Because obviously Juju's gone. Last year, just looking at Sky Moore's numbers, the only real success he had was actually out of the slot, and he seemed to be very good from the slot and targeted pretty often from the slot. So do you think that's where he'll be, or do you think he'll be moved around formation?
Well, Andy Reid, including the tight ends and the running backs, likes to move everybody all over the line. And so I know what you're saying, where he did have more of the success outside, but I just tend to think the Chiefs have other options where Kadarius is healthy. You have MBS. Rashee Rice is the rookie, who's, I think, a little bit profiles more so as an outside guy, where I think you lose Juju. So someone has to fill that void. And I think they're challenging Sky Moore to do that, where he can become that go-to target when Kelsey has a little bit more attention than he might not have on other plays. And I just think you look at the hands, you look at, I think, the speed after the catch with Sky Moore. To me, I'm probably bullish most on him in the wide receiver room for this year. And it might be Rice with other head coaches, but we have seen that it usually takes a year for a rookie to really get acclimated in the Andy Reid system. I like Rashee Rice and a Jody Fortson more so in the red zone than I do for a complete fantasy player with production.